Just end the series. End the series right now. We've won. We've won. We have to have won, or Arthur literally has to be in an entirely separate dimension. We have to have won. What's up, guys? All Hunter here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review for chapter 125 of Four Knights of the Apapalapa, known as Knights of War. And there is so much that happens in this chapter. There's so much I'm going to be talking. Actually, realistically, not too much happens in this chapter, but the implications of this chapter and the ramifications that it's going to have on the entire series going forward, and the ramifications that it could have for anything that happens in the future are literally endless. I got so much to talk about, so let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? Pencil here. Fun fact, I have it on me and I keep it on me at all times. And guess what? Someone just got something. Someone just got something that they're gonna have on them and keep on them at all times. Yo, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm freaking and geeking. I'm literally 10 minutes off of recording the live reaction, which you can go check out on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, or if you want to stay on YouTube, you can become a member. Check it out for as low as $3 a month. About a 25-minute live reaction. I'm still freaking and geeking off of that alone. So, if you can't tell, I'm a little bit excited, and there's some things we need to talk about. But, of course, before we actually hop into the chapter's actual contents, I do want to give praise to Nakabasuki for remembering how to draw a Bond. Like, this is a peak Bond image right here. And realize, Nakaba has not done a full frontal image of Bond in the manga since the Lancelot one-shot, I believe. He may have done like concept art for the movie because Bond did appear in Grudge of Edinburgh Part 2, and obviously he appeared in Cursed by Light and he had a new ability there, so maybe he did some work on him for that. But specifically in the manga, I don't think we've gotten a full frontal shot of Bond in literally like 4 years? It has to be more than that, right? Because when did Seven Deadly Sins end? Hold on, let me see. When did the Seven Deadly Sins manga end? When did the Seven Deadly Sins manga end? Serialization. March 2020. So it's literally been like 3 years. 3 years since he actually, going on 4, since he's actually sat down and like drawn Bond properly. And he still got it. I'll give him credit. Well, admittedly, I forget when the Lancelot one-shot came out. So that it may be more recent than that. But still, this is a fire image of Bond. Love him. One of the best designs in the original series. I plan to make a Seven Deadly Sins design tier list one day, because if there's one thing I do like to talk about, it is Naga's artwork. But W design. And I do like this. This is a nice little flashback between father and son. Lance, before Lance became so jacked that he may even outscale this man. That is crazy. But once again, I do like this chapter cover page. It's very, very beautiful. Very, very short, sweet, simple, to the point, and does make me really want to see his father, especially considering I really wonder, are we going to get to see him? I think there's so many things that could happen based on what happens next chapter, because next chapter essentially has to cut back to Percy versus Mortlock. It has to. And the ramifications of that could be detrimental, or things could go well. And if things do go well, we may not see Bond for a hot minute. But let's not waste any more time, and let's actually hop into chapter 125, the Knights of War. So we open up and we do get to see something. I'm sorry, I want to get to the statement, but let me acknowledge the full breadth of this chapter. Can we look at the size of it? Look at where my cursor is. Look at where my little hand is. Look at it. Look at how big Lance is. Look at how many lances tall his aura is. His aura is literally gargantuan, and that's just the solid parts of it. You include this little fringe on top right here, bro, is bursting with magic. And do I talk about the theory now, or do I talk about it towards the end of the chapter? I'll talk about it later. Because there's so much that happens on this first page alone. I'm going to be here for like 5 minutes. So we see that Lance simply standing there, flexing his magical muscles, has Nashi shivering in his boots and being like, ugh, such intense magic force. And I ain't gonna lie, I think it is. Feel free to correct me, I've been wrong before, and I'm happy to be wrong again. Have we ever seen a person to magic aura ratio this large? Have we? I can't remember one. Like, we've seen characters flex their magical auras, and like one specific example that's coming to mind is Meliodas destroying Danafor. But I don't count that as his magical aura, I count that like as him exploding with darkness and like destroying everything. But outside of that, is there any time we've seen someone with such a large magic aura relative to they themselves? Like, this is like his simple presence here is shaking the earth and blowing the Nashi away. Nashi, an archangel tier, and depending on how you interpret some things in this chapter, maybe beyond archangel tier fighter. Yo. Clancy's looking a little bit himothy, but I guess in Akaba, he's heard me trying to rationalize for original series characters. He's heard the power skiller in me decrying the fact that I just really can't scale Lance anywhere concretely, because the gap between Chaos Arthur at his full power and base Arthur is really nebulous. We don't know how much stronger just regular human Arthur is, the one who Lance dominates. He doesn't really land a hit on proper Chaos Arthur, but he should be nebulously above a whole bunch of characters. He should clear the commandments, clear the archangels, he may even clear the deities, but it's super duper unclear. There's just no way I could directly properly scale him without making some pretty big assumptions. It's like Nakaba had a bug in my house and heard me say that and said, you know what, Pencilman, you want some concrete scaling? You just gotta wait 125 chapters, because I'll give you some concrete scaling, young man. And we have Nanashi say this. Let me take a sip to make sure I can say it in the smoothest and butteriest voice of Nanashi that I can muster. I hear that you tussled with Arthur once. He said you outclassed any seasoned warrior he's seen, from your intuition to your courage and strength. Yo, okay, we gotta talk about this. We gotta get serious about it. We're getting real serious about this one. I'm gonna have to get both down. I'm gonna have to get both down real quick. We got some serious stuff to talk about here. Yo. Let me put the reader on my shoulder and let me draw a lost vein real quick, because we gotta talk. Because these characters are gonna have to get brought up. Yo. I got lost vein in the backhand grip and I got reader on my shoulder. So dog, let's have a real conversation, because we gotta sit down and analyze this statement right here. So, one of the biggest issues, one of the main reasons you haven't really seen me do many cross-verse or even many inverse 4 Knights battles, despite the series being in serialization for we're going on 3 years now, by the way. We're nearly at 3 years of serialization for 4 Knights. I believe around January or February, we're going to hit 3 years. 4 Knights has been in consistent production for about 3 years. So you would think, hey, Pencilman, where are the fights? Where are the battles? Where are the thingamajigs? And one of the biggest things that kept me from doing 4 Knights thingamajigs, except for like minor inverse stuff that was very, very clear from inverse things, is the fact that, I kind of couldn't tell how certain characters scale to the original series, because Nakaba made things very, very weird and nebulous. Like, for the longest time, there were just no links at all to the original series, because original series characters were not popping up. Gother showed up, but Gother didn't really fight anybody. And the people he did fight were nebulous fodder that he low-diffed from like miles upon miles away. That doesn't scale the main cast or any characters I would actually want to do versus battle with anywhere. For heck, when the Chaos Commandments showed up, that was one of the biggest links back to the original series, and technically we did get some concrete scaling for them, but even then, that was weird. Belascula, in particular, is what throws the whole Chaos Amp Commandments in weird nebulous spots. The easiest assumption is that they're just as strong as their original selves, but then Galen goes out to make a statement that, oh yeah, I'm much stronger than I was before, to the point where Escanor couldn't use Rita to scratch me anymore. which is a crazy statement. I took it with a grain of salt. A lot of people don't. But once again, there's that contention that makes it hard to argue with the Chaos Commandments versus the original series. And the thing with the Amp is I'd love to take it at face value, but then Melascula argues that her Bloom Cocoon is upgraded from the original series, even though she claims it's going to take 5 minutes to reduce somebody to nothing, when before she could walk right in there and one-tap your soul in like 2 seconds. That's what she did once again to Escanor. So the scaling of the Chaos Commandments to the original series was a nightmare. That's why you never really heard me mention it, except on the rare videos when I asked y'all, what do you guys think, and presented arguments for both sides. Then we got the big ones. We got Meliodas and Arthur fighting. But once again, super duper nebulous. They kind of went nowhere, especially considering what Arthur says during that battle. Very specifically, he, after battling Lance, is like, yeah, you're good. You're neat. You're cool and all, but I'll be real with you. You don't really seem like you're Meliodas level, all that. You ain't like that. So once again, Lance went somewhere nebulously beneath Meliodas. Which version of Meliodas? How much stronger has Meliodas gotten? Is Meliodas the same as his post-purgatory self from 16 years ago? Has he gotten massively stronger? You could argue he's gotten massively stronger considering Arthur hasn't invaded and one-tapped him yet. Or you could argue that he hasn't gotten any stronger and Arthur's not attacking him out of respect. Very, very, once again, super duper nebulous. And same thing with Tristan, same thing with Percy, same thing with Gawain. Lancelot was the main guy you could relate back to the original series because he was consistently being compared to a 7 Deadly Sins level threat. But hi, welcome to 7 Deadly Sins, where being a 7 Deadly Sins level threat can either mean your base Diane level or your true magic Meliodas level. And don't get me wrong, base Diane isn't fodder, but I wouldn't say she's anywhere. There are likely 6 whole tiers, just off the top of my head, just going straight off the top of the dome, 6 whole tiers between base Diane and true magic Meliodas. Just whole tiers. So 7 Deadly Sins level, once again, super duper nebulous and vague. Hard to argue anything. But then Nashi says this. Now, don't get me wrong, there can definitely still be contentions made about this statement. Nashi is quoting something that Arthur said elsewhere. And this isn't coming straight from Arthur's mouth, it's coming from Nashi, but then you're going to have to prove that Nanashi's lying. And why would he lie? Once again, it's one of the hardest things to substantiate when you get a verbatim statement like this. And unfortunately, this statement is very specifically worded. And I want any of my translators out there, tell me what this says in the original kanji, if you can. Because the word strength is explicitly used. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Typically, sometimes you can make arguments when a character is said to be the best at one thing. Like, they're the best hand-to-hand fighter. Like, one of the biggest things with Zeldris. And as much as I love Zeldris, I don't put him in the top 10 of the verse, mainly because bro's best statement is like, oh, you're the fastest blade in the demon realm. He's likely not faster than his brother, he's likely not faster than his father, and being the fastest blade in the demon realm doesn't suddenly make you the strongest. Or, like, saying you're the most skilled of any warrior I've ever seen. Yeah, sure, you can be skilled, but you can still be drastically weaker than other people. We've seen stuff like this before, especially in 7 Deadly Sins. But no, very explicitly, according to Nashi, Arthur said, he said you outclassed any seasoned warrior he's seen, from your intuition to your courage and strength. The last major, most important word there is strength. It's strength. It's so clean cut. It's so verbatim. There's no, like, unless you want to argue it's just physical strength, but we know in 7 Deadly Sins, the physically stronger you are, the faster you are. Typically, if you have raw strength, raw power, your magic is typically stronger. And we've seen Lance's magic is absolutely insane. It's literally light-based magic is able to drastically harm, as was clearly pointed out to me in last week's comment section, near death in Archangel. Remember, Mael, when he was... Sorry, I'm going so hard right now, my chest is about to explode. Mael, in the original series, when he was Estarossa, weaker than any of his Archangel incarnations, had a resistance to light that was so potent that Tarmiel and Sariel literally couldn't damage him with their arc attacks, even though he was biologically a demon at the time. That's how deeply the goddess light resistance is ingrained into someone's body, and thusly, Estarossa took no damage from any of the light attacks. Crazy. But Nanashi, facing a light attack, someone who is, according to multiple characters, well, not multiple, mainly just Schwartz, but still, Schwartz should be a reliable source. According to Schwartz, Nanashi's about Archangels here. And he was near death and needed to spam his third best in the verse healing, only behind Chaos Powers in the Fountain of Youth, his third best in the verse healing, in order to simply survive a casual Shining Road. Admittedly, one infused by what we find out is a Sacred Treasure tier weapon, which is still a good feat for Nashi. The fact that he didn't get vaporized is impressive, but remember, that's fighting through an entire light immunity. A whole immunity. So, when this statement is taken at face value, and that's what I'm going to do, because this statement is once again super clean cut, it's hard to interpret in any other way. Nashi is essentially saying that Lancelot, we'll say it's this Lance, we'll assume it's not base Lance, even though it was base Lance that Arthur mostly tussled with, we'll assume that it is full power Lance for the sake of my sanity. I'll be real, this is literally just for my sanity. You could definitely argue, considering the main Lance that Arthur fought was base Lance, maybe even saying this about base Lance, outclassed any seasoned warrior he'd see, from your intuition to your courage and strength. Now realize, Arthur has seen some pretty powerful people. On the lowest end you could take this is you could argue that it's only characters that Arthur saw before his Chaos Amp. There's nothing here that implies this, by the way. Nothing at all. Nowhere near anything that implies this. This is the lowest interpretation you can take it. That would still put Lance above Chandler and Cusack, who Arthur saw. It would put him above, not post-Purgatory Assault Mode Meliodas, but post-Resurrection Assault Mode Meliodas, who had been growing stronger than the one that was low-diffing Late Noon Escanor. And according to Zeldris himself, could have actually been Escanor. And based on how Meliodas interacts with his main rival Mael in the past, and repelled him in just Demon Mark, it seems kind of crazy. That's on the low end. What this really means, at face value, is that Lancelot, in terms of raw strength, and even, you could argue intuition means battle IQ, so if you want to go there, and raw strength and battle IQ is stronger than every single sin. Every last one of them. Arthur saw all the sins. All of them. All of them. Except for Escanor. Unless you want to argue that somehow Final Shine Escanor is out here above every other sin, but you can't. You cannot argue he's stronger than Meliodas. I'm sorry, Escanor fans. I'm not buying any of them arguments. But at a bare minimum, Arthur should understand what Assault Mode is as an amp. He should be able to guesstimate the raw multiplier that it has. And presumably, as far as we know, Assault Mode is Meliodas' highest form right now. Maybe he has True Magic back, maybe he doesn't. Debate endless. But the reason this statement is so important is because, remember, any seasoned warrior does not mention human, fairy, goddess, or giant. It is just seasoned warrior. Who is the seasoned warrior that Arthur directly fought against not 50 chapters ago? Well, maybe a bit more, over 50 chapters ago, but about 50 chapters ago. King Meliodas. King Meliodas. King Meliodas, the strongest living sin. I'm sorry, I know the Bond fans out there are going to come after me, but out on court shoes, and I'll be real, Bond ain't stronger than Mel. I think you and I both know that. No matter how much we love to gas up Bond himself, we cannot argue he's stronger than Mel. Same thing with King, same thing with Ronan, same thing with Diane. Same thing with Elizabeth, if you want to include her as an honorary sin. Lord Hawk, maybe that's different. Maybe that's different. Sir Wilde, maybe that's different. But very specifically, of the core sins, Mel is the strongest. If there's any character in the entire series that's still alive who's a seasoned warrior, it would be Meliodas. And according to Nashi, Arthur said that Lance is superior to him, outclasses everybody he's seen, outclasses King Meliodas in strength. Now, there is still, I hate to, once again, just for my sanity, there is still a way to lowball this. No, admittedly, it doesn't work all too well. You could argue Arthur has not seen Assault Mode King Mel. We haven't. Arthur hasn't. So, maybe that. And if you want to argue that Arthur never saw base post-resurrection Meliodas, and thusly, he also never saw not true magic. He never saw base go into Assault Mode, so he never sensed the power difference. Maybe you can argue he cannot quantify Assault Mode. And then you would argue that Lance is still beneath Assault Mode King now. because Arthur hasn't seen that one. But if you don't argue that, Lance is above. And here's the crazy thing. Here's the wild thing, right? Arthur fought Lance when Lance didn't have a weapon. He didn't have this. He didn't have this. He definitely didn't have these. These are sacred treasures. He fought Lance with no weapon. And Lance, I don't know about you, but I believe Shining Road definitely counts as a destruction type magic, considering what it does to people. So Arthur is assuming that simply after observing a quick battle with Lance, that, maybe not base, but full power Lance is out here being above Lost Vein Demon Mark King Mel. That's the lowest you can take it. That Lance with no weapon is stronger than him in raw strength. Y'all, he may just be the second strongest character in the verse. Unless it's revealed that Kath is still alive or there are other Chaos Clan members, he's literally the second strongest in the verse. There's no other way to take this. Unless I'm wrong. Once again, I'm spending all this time here because this is such a mind-boggling statement. Which I'm literally trying to rationalize it against it because of what happens at the end of this chapter and what's revealed about what Lancelot gets at the end of this chapter. But hear me. He literally has to be the second strongest character in the verse because we don't know a character stronger than Mel. We don't know a character stronger than Lost Vein wielding King Mel. Arthur fought that. Arthur saw that seasoned warrior. Lance is stronger than him. They have better battle IQ if you consider Arthur's statement at face value. Yo, this is great. Like, this is actually nuts. This is actually nuts. And once again, I will ask y'all to recontextualize this for me. If y'all can see any other interpretation, I haven't even posted the live reaction yet at the time of recording this. So maybe the live reaction, maybe my patrons and members will be able to give me a different perspective. But I'm asking y'all, if there's any other way you can interpret this, then Lance literally just being number 2 in the verse, but a full power Chaos Arthur. Be my guest. Tell me how you do it. Unless you want to argue like Kath, maybe stronger, maybe that. I don't think so. I really don't. I really don't. So I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't know how we do it. I don't know how we work around this. I don't know how you fight this. You have to do some weird argument to fight this. And I know every single Lance fan, upon reading that statement, busted to the moon. Busted to the, like, straight up, busted halfway across the solar system. You and the Earth will be destroyed. Cell has nothing on us for how hard we busted. But with that being the case, dog, Lance being number 2 in the verse, no weapon is wild. How much stronger does he have to go? He doesn't have, and realize, he doesn't have his wings yet. He doesn't have wings. Could still get wing amps, y'all. He's 16. He could get more amps. He can still get stronger. I'm sorry. It's just absolutely insane to me. I've spent 20 minutes on this because the ramifications are massive. If you can disprove, debunk, alternatively interpret some way around this, please do. I'm going to move on to the rest of the chapter because there are still more crazy things that happen later. So, let's do it to it, as Sonic would say. That, and he told me you're right-handed, but fought with your left. Perhaps your right arm was hurt, or it's some limitation based on your magic force. Oh, and here's the thing that admittedly kind of soft nerfs Lance, but I'm like, how do I put this? Author's power scale. No matter how much issue you have with power scaling, and no matter what you do, author's power scale. It's simply how you write a story. If your series has any sort of conflict in it, it doesn't have to be physical combat, it doesn't have to be mental combat, psychic combat, whatever. It doesn't have to be any. If there's any sort of conflict in your series, there's power scaling. You can literally power scale how people talk. If you say so and so is a better speaker than someone else, that's power scaling. if you say so-and-so has a better chance in a romance manga than so-and-so, that's literally power scale. It's stupid. It's so stupid to say it like that, but it literally is true. Author's power scale. So I think this is Nakaba's attempt to soft nerf Lance, because a big thing that a lot of the community was theorizing was that Lance locked his true power behind his right hand. That somehow, some way, in some way, shape, or form, his right hand also gave him an amp. Not to talk of a weapon amp, not to talk of a true magic amp, not to talk of anything like that. All of that came with various juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious amps. But my thing is, the thing that actively concerns me about this so much that I'm really shaking and quivering in my boots is that this isn't enough of a nerf. Because it's revealed, right? Lance is quiet as Nanashi makes these assumptions. But look at what Lance reveals. No. It's just because being ambidextrous is cooler. I was training my left hand. That's all. Ugh, don't make me spell it out for you, dude. Don't be so cringe. So this is, once again, it's a soft nerf. It's a very soft nerf for how much solid amping Lancelot has gotten this chapter in terms of just raw power. This is definitively just a soft nerf. Lance gets no specific amps from switching hands. That's fine. If you're gonna soft nerf him, I guess that's a way to soft nerf him. Okay. You debunked that one fan theory, Naka, but you made him the second strongest in the verse. I'm not sure if he knows that. And maybe, once again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm just so caught up on that he's literally just the second strongest in the verse. Like that. Who's stronger than Mel? Who's stronger than 16 years of training King Mel? I don't know. Clearly not Percy. Clearly not Lance. Well, no. Well, clearly Lance. Clearly not Gawain. Clearly not Tristan. Clearly not Elizabeth. Maybe Bond. Maybe if you want to slop off Bond somehow. Maybe King. You want to slop off King? No way. Jose on Diane. Oh, who is stronger than that man? Lance can literally, if this is to be taken at face value, Lance, remember the gods, the deities, supreme deity and the demon king that had prime Meliodas and prime goddess Elizabeth so shaken up and so perturbed that they couldn't do a scratch of damage to their clothes. Remember those gods? They would get one-tapped by Lance. One-tapped. Most likely by base Lance, by the way. Not full power. One-tapped by Lance. Because those gods scale weaker than first form Demon King's Eldris. And base post-purgatory Meliodas with no weapon is able to absolutely bully that king. That version of the Demon King. Who is stronger than the Demon King from 3,000 years ago. Yeah, there are levels to it. I have to make its own individual video, and I'm gonna try and focus back in on the chapter itself because I don't want to be here for 15 years just slopping off Lance, because Nakaba slopped him off enough. And like you can literally see, Nanashi's as mind blown as I am. This is the widest we ever see his eyes go. Well, no, widest and then pinprick in terms of the size of the pupil. It's crazy, but we see that Nanashi just has to hard confirm. He's like, and that's the only reason? And Lance was like, is that a problem? You got an issue with how I think, how I move, how I roll? What do you want to talk about, Angel Man? And Nanashi's like, whoa, Buggeroo. Sorry, I didn't know about your game. I was not knowledgeable enough about your game, dog. I didn't mean to talk about you like that. So it's so crazy to me. It is so insane that this is the case, dog. Though admittedly, once again, Nakaba isn't just slopping off Lance to be the ultimate crazy power dude ever. If he really wanted to, he could have explained, he could have just gone with the Nashi explanation, that it literally is a magic limitation, or Lance's arm was hurt, or anything like that. But no, he specifically gives Lance extra characterization through being like, oh no, Lance is still a 16-year-old. He's still a kid. He just thinks being ambidextrous is cool. And I can't even lie. Being ambidextrous is cool. Shouts to all my ambidextrous people in the comment section down below. Y'all are different. Yeah, your boy, there are very limited things I can do with my left hand. I can pick up stuff, obviously. Like, it's a functioning hand. But, like, anything that's fine-tuned control when it comes to writing or drawing or anything just that, I can't do much. The only things that my left hand is 100% definitively better at than my right hand is steering. It doesn't matter what like vehicle or moving device I'm on. If I'm riding a bike one-handed, it's easier for me to steer with my left hand. I can ride with no hands on a bike. I don't know why. I love that I can do that now. I can ride with no hands on a bike. But if I am doing bike stuff, left. If I'm driving a car with one hand, which I would never do because that's bad. Keep your hands on 9 and 3, kids. And keep your eyes on the road. Yeah, I can do that easier with my left than my right. If I'm driving a scooter, anything, it's a snowmobile. Even when the one time I rode a jet ski, it was easier to just control with just my left. I don't know why. Something about my left is always good for steering, and strangely enough, good for like motion. Like, it's weird to say, but like whenever I go ice skating, it's easier for me to control, brake, push off, stop, all that with my left foot. No idea why. That's the only thing I do with my left. But I can respect Lancelot for wanting to become ambidextrous and just practicing because he thinks it's cool. Yeah, why not? I mean, I should probably practice more with my left hand. I can type with it, but even then, I think I can type better with my right hand, actually. Let me see. Then again, I really always type with both hands. So that's a me thing. I don't know. I don't really type with one hand that often, so I can't directly quantify that. But with that being the case, I do like the extra characterization, right? Because we could definitely get lost. As you can see, I definitely got lost in the raw power scaling aspect. Lance is him. This is a battle shonen. He's number 2 in the verse. Oh! Which is crazy. But this is still a story about characters. Nakaba's greatest strength is his characters. And I do like that extra characterization is put on rather than any sort of more power scaling stuff. And don't get me wrong, power scaling can definitely lead directly into characterization. The journey of strength is relevant to characters within something like Sins, within characters like Dragon Ball, within characters like Jujutsu Kaisen. Strength and power matters a whole lot in storytelling and characterization. But Lance specifically getting more teenage 16-year-old stuff is nice. I do like that he's still a guy that's 16. And thus, he just wants to do stupid stuff because he thinks it's cool. But with that being the case, we see that Lance is like, how dare you insult my ambidextrous preferences? It's time I end this. And once again, extra characterization, which I really like. The main reason he's so ready, down, and dirty to end this is because I'm concerned about my friends. Besides, I think that should be reversed. I think it should say, besides, I'm concerned about my friends, which is why I am asking if anyone does have the original Raws or the Japanese and can directly translate it. I'm not sure. I read all the comments, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone directly translate the Japanese down below. If you know anyone who can directly translate the Japanese, see if that statement, wow, only on the second page, I'm 30 minutes in, see if that statement does directly translate to strength. If it doesn't, then maybe we can do some weird argument stuff. But if it is strength in both the original writings and in the translation, Lance basically number 2 in the verse with no weapon. That's crazy. But we do get to see that Lance enters the stands, and Nashi's like, oh, sweet mother of mercy. Remember, I'm sorry, I keep going back to Glazing, but it's just second nature to me. The Lance fan in me feels ever vindicated. Like, once again, I know Tristan fans just recently got their moment. I know the Gawain fans out there are doing a happy. Poor Percival fans, y'all have been in a drought for the past, like, month or so. So big rips for y'all. But Nanashi's an Archangel tier fighter. On the lowest end, like, don't get me wrong, 7 Deadly Sins tier fighter, Commandment tier fighter, those are very broad ranges. Massively broad ranges. To be, like I said, to be 7 Deadly Sins level, you can either be base Diane level or true Magic Meliodas level. Wide gaps for Commandment level. You could be Fraudulent level, or you could be Prime Meliodas level. Wide gaps. But for Archangel, the gap is still implied to be pretty wide between Ludashel, Mael, and Tarmiel and Sariel. But still, even lowballing him to just Tarmiel or Sariel level, the fact that him just moving has the Nashi shivering, dog. Oh, he's so good. He's so strong. He's strong, boy. But we see that Lance enters the stands. And question, does this hand look long to anybody else? This hand, right, does it look long to anybody else? Or is it just me? Is it just, this hand looks extra long. Like, do I have a ruler? I'm whipping out the ruler. How many? You know what? We'll even go with inches. How long is this hand, bro? I'm about to put it up to the stream. I literally can't see because of the ring light. You know what? I can still make this work, even if I don't have the direct. Let me just do this. So his hand is about 1.5 inches, and then there's the joint, about 1.5 inches. So his hand is the same length as his forearm, just about. That seems a little bit excessive. Once again, I always, especially whenever I glaze a mangaka a whole bunch in terms of their artistic quality, I always try to at least throw in one art critique. I didn't want to just come out of this chapter saying it's literally perfect. You'll hear me do it with Horikoshi. You'll hear me do it with Nakaba Suzuki. You'll hear me do it with the Record of Ragnarok mangaka. I will find something to critique, because there's always one thing. But that's mainly so I'm just not consistently glazing. The hand's a little bit too long. That's the only art issue I have in this entire chapter. This chapter is so good. But we do see Lance lock it. Oh, one thing I do want to mention. Thank you to all my fighters, all my trained people, everyone who has knowledge about fighting in the comment section down below for explaining the corkscrew punch. To me, the punch I didn't understand Lancelot doing, where he punched like this, like inverse, where I would typically, where I would assume most would punch like this, punch like that. I was explaining a couple things. One, this is actually a position you can punch with. It's not like anatomically incorrect, like I made the assumption it was last chapter. I thought maybe it was just an art mistake on Nakaba's part. Two, I found out like people do actually punch like this. Apparently, it has something to do. It's a corkscrew punch, and has something to do with the force being released from the turn, which does make sense. Like this seemingly has less force behind it than this. I can feel more in my tricep when I go like this versus this, which seems to be pretty much all bicep, very little tricep. So I appreciate that explanation. Thank all y'all. So, question about y'all: is this hand long? This isn't just for the people who know how to fight. This is for everybody. Does this hand seem long? But with that being the case, we see that Nashi, in fear of the long hand, flies into the heavens and pops out his wings. Now, I can't. Let me get real close. I can't tell. Those look like normal eyes. Nashi pops out his wings. Now, I know a lot of people, some people I saw in last week's comment section didn't even recognize the knot, or maybe that was a few weeks ago. I saw someone in the comment section of one of the Fortnite's reviews, and some people didn't even know who Nashi was. That's how small his appearance was in the original series. But, as the chapter goes on to later explain, Nashi had his wings ripped out. Like, literally ripped out. Before this chapter, I assume he had ripped them out himself to simply hide the fact he was once a goddess, but no, he had his wings torn out. Unlike Mael, who when he forsake the supreme deity, his grace, which was his wings, left him, and then he could regrow them later. It's interesting that he just casually pops out his wings. It's a pretty big thing for him. He considers Lance enough of a threat to almost kind of forsake his punishment and go into his four-wing state. And notably, once again, just reaffirming that Nashi's of the Archangel tier, he has 4 sizable wings. We've seen weaker goddesses with 4 wings, I do believe, but only the Archangels and Elizabeth have the 4 massive fluttering wings. Once again, proving that Nashi's up in that upper echelon of goddesses, which is all the more impressive for what ends up happening to Nashi. And we see that Nashi compliments Lancelot on his good eye and preparing for a proper strike. And we see that Nashi's like, yeah, I don't think I can hold back on you anymore, buddy. Here, let me hold it. Let me help you hold this. And he raises up this beautiful attack here. Once again, Nakaba. He's one of my favorites. Let me think. Does he use? Yeah. But then again, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's like Gege. Have I never noticed this before? Huh. I don't know. I'm looking through the chapter real quick. I don't think Nakaba ever uses shading. He always uses, whatever he does, he uses hard blacks and hard whites for shading to portray like light and stuff like that. But I don't actually think Nakaba uses shading. I think him and Gege don't use shading. They consistently use cross-hatching. Considering how much I read and talk about Seven Sin / Four Knights, the duology, I'm shocked I never actually noticed that. Because yeah, that isn't shading, that's cross-hatching. That isn't shading, that's cross-hatching. Once again, not shading, just cross-hatching. Wow! once again, I give praise to Gege for this all the time for not actually using shading. If you don't know what shading is, I still have it open on the appropriate page. I do not have it open on the appropriate page. Let me see. I do have it in this sketchbook because I referenced this and I believe in a Jujutsu Kaisen review. But let me see. Nope. It's not here. Let me see. In fact, I do have some images I can pull up. So typically what you see here on this drawing of Ryong, this is cross-hatching. This is dual cross-hatching. It's typically what I do when I want to imply deeper depth. Because since I'm lazy and don't like the color, I also don't like shading, I typically always cross-hatch everything. This is dual cross-hatching to display the blacks of his horns and the depth of shadow underneath his chin to show that there's some three-dimensional space here. You typically see when I just want to add extra detail on a hand or something like this, I typically use single cross-hatch. This, once again, portrays shadow and dimension to the drawing, but does not have the same impact as the deep double crosshatch here for the darkness of the horns, or the lighter crosshatch here for the darkness of the shadow on his neck. Lightness still portrays extra dimension, but does not go too far into it. But hypothetically, instead of doing all that, what most mangaka, including fantastic mangaka like Horikoshi, would do is something like this. People who actually do like to color and do things properly, that is shading, where you specifically lightly graze whatever. I use pencils, obviously, that guy with one. You specifically use that in order to portray things like shadows or depth or dimension. It is here. I'm gonna use the two pectorals as an example. Typically, I find it easier to crosshatch because it's just less effort. I'm not saying that Nakaba or Gege are lazy in this. In fact, the utilization of their cross-hatching and the mix of their usage of soft blacks and soft whites does still impress me. That's literally what I was about to praise Gege for. But, once again, shading is difficult for me because I don't do it all too often. But there's the difference. This is just simple cross-hatching. It typically comes off as lighter. This is direct shading. It's a lot more solid. Nakaba does not use shading, at least from what I can remember. Maybe it's just this chapter. Maybe he uses shading in other chapters. I'm just not remembering. But I don't think he shades. He consistently uses cross-hatching, which is very, very impressive. It's really considering the beauty of Nakaba's art. Because I love Gege. Nakaba's better art than Gege. It's not much of a competition, at least not in my opinion. I love JJK art, and I will admit that at times, or really very consistently, JJK art has better fluidity, but in terms of art quality, I have to put Seven Deadly Sins and Nakaba above Gege as an artist. And now that I'm just noticing that he never uses shading, all of this is cross-hatching. It is super duper impressive to me. That's crazy. And this attack looks beautiful. That's the whole reason I even started that discussion. And it's specifically a use of the white in contrast with the solid blacks. Fantastic. And we see that Nanashi decides that Lance is worthy of him going all out. This is essentially what Nanashi's saying here. He says, "Let me fully gauge you then with the greatest of my abilities." And we see that Gawain is now off of Schwartz. Hallelujah. And she says, "What's that laughably huge ball of magic force?" And she's referring to Lancelot, which is interesting. I guess, was Gawain unconscious? I thought she was conscious. I'm pretty sure she was conscious by the time Lancelot was around. She must have seen Lancelot's magic ball even then. Maybe she just doesn't remember or wasn't paying attention. But of course, Tristan knows better than anyone. "It's Lancelot! I'm sure of it! And that man from the Goddess clan, too." I love how Shorts is still laid out. Like, Tristan, we know, well, maybe he's just not as good as his mom, but we know goddesses can heal demons. Dog, if you don't use your magical ability, his ability name is Nova, by the way. Nakaba very recently revealed the names of all the knights' magic. I will be making a video on that separately, but her magic's name is Dawn, which is different from Sunshine and Sun. Very different. Unlike Sun and Sunshine, which they're pretty much reflections of one another. Her magic being named Dawn is very interesting. Tristan's magic is named Nova, which is the reference of a star glowing brightly and then receding over time. Very appropriate for Tristan. Lancelot's magic is known as Hazy Moon. Very interesting, very interesting. That may explain the light manipulation because, you know, the moon reflects light. And not Tristan. How am I still getting their names confused? It's been nearly 3 years. Percival's magic is just called Hope. I still don't buy it though. I think his true magic is gonna be something completely different. But we do get to see that Tristan is blown away by that gigantic cross of light that Nashi is releasing. One of, maybe not the biggest, Let There Be Light was pretty big, but one of the biggest light attacks we've seen in the series. Maybe? Nah, I don't think it's bigger than Greatest Sun. Greatest Sun was massive. So I don't think we even chalk it up as bigger than Greatest Sun. But still, just a testament to how much raw power Nashi has access to. And we see that they're actually shocked on the idea that Nanashi's actually thinking of just AoE bombing the battlefield with that. And I honestly don't blame them for that fear. I'd be scared as well. But with that being the case, we see that Nashi unleashes Secret Skill. And notably, this is a question for y'all, and I want to ask all y'all this. Do you guys think this gets the 10 times amp of a weapon infused with destruction magic? I do think Arc counts as destruction magic because it is something that erases things from existence. It varies. I mean, definitely you could see Arc being argued as a hero type magic, which has destruction type properties, but we know the 10 times amp was brought up with Hope magic, which has similar properties to Arc magic pretty much in every way, shape, and form. So do you guys think this counts? Because we see he does swing the blade when he activates the secret skill. Setsuna Juji Se. Setsuna Juji Se. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Instant cross star. Please leave the pronunciation for that down below, even though I don't see us seeing this attack ever again. Unfortunately, I do believe this is Nanashi's. Unless he comes back and fights the Lesser Knights, I don't think we're going to see this attack ever again. But we see this is a massive attack. And Lance here. Lance is even smaller, and his aura is even bigger, dog. Look at the girth. But we do get to see that he does launch this off. And Lance locks in. But, on fort for Nashi, bro. This is a massive detonation. I'm not sure how you calculate, but it's a massive detonation. And Nashi has his blade drawn down, and he says something interesting. As he flies in the heavens and sees the massive burst of energy, he says, "This was the only way to fully test you out. This skill gravely injured Arthur himself once. Can you withstand it or not?" Now, admittedly, this once again kind of falls into the nebulous statement category. Unlike the first statement, which very clearly says every single opponent that Arthur's seen is weaker and has less battle intuition than Lancelot. There's a clear, simple statement that means anyone that Arthur has seen, any seasoned warrior, so once again, just Meliodas, well, not just Meliodas, but you know what I mean in terms of the raw power stuff, that is pretty clear, but he doesn't say Chaos Arthur. He doesn't say Arthur wielding that dark power. It gravely injured Arthur himself once. Could just be base. Could just be base. And don't get me wrong, harming base Arthur is impressive for an archangel, or even a goddess in general. You may be able to argue Elizabeth wouldn't be able to do that. You may be able to argue Mael wouldn't be able to do that, or any of the archangels would be able to do that. But once again, base Arthur is so wibbly-wobbly, wishy-washy. He's strong enough to damage Kath. And if you believe Kath is the second strongest character in the series, at the time of the original series end, then this is crazy, because base Arthur scales to Kath. But if you don't think that, then it's kind of a nebulous statement. But it's interesting that Nashi, after hearing Arthur say that, still wants to test out Lance's metal, which is intriguing. But we do get to see that Nashi is asking a very important question. Do you truly have what it takes to defeat Arthur in battle or not? Nashi is testing Lance to see if he's powerful enough to knock some sense into Arthur. That's essentially what he's saying here. And we see that Lance, he's much more than Nashi could ever deal with. As we hear, mind telling me what this thing is? And Nashi is shocked to find his magic simply swirling around Lancelot. And admittedly, Nanashi, once again, this is a beautiful panel, but Nanashi does make a statement here that at first had me freaking and geeking, but on second read, or just probably reading the rest of the page doesn't necessarily matter all too much. Huh? Impossible! He's not even hurt? How did he dodge my most secret of skills, and even erase it from existence? But no. Lance didn't actually erase something from existence, so we can't give him that yet. I also want to argue that Shining Road is arc manipulation, and arc does erase things from existence. It erases demonic souls, which is existence erasure. So, maybe. But, that being the case, we see Lance absorbs it. And look at what Nanashi very clearly compares it to. Like a mighty river, swallowing up its tributaries with ease. Now I know for sure the true nature of his magic. So, Hazy Moon. I'm gonna make a whole theory video on what Hazy Moon actually is and what it could be and how it could technically still end up reflecting his mom and his dad in its magical fortitude. Because remember, Elaine's magic is Tempest, I do believe, and Bond's magic is Snatch, and Hazy Moon could have an interesting effect, but note what Nanashi says here. No, he is absorbing it. Lancelot is showing an ability to absorb, redirect, and homogenize? Make everything the same of the magic. Of his magic. He's doing that right now. And a big theory about what Lance is and why Lance is so strong is the idea that he absorbed the magic of the Lady of the Lake, the excess magic that was fired into it way back when, 16 years ago. Remember, that attack was a multiplication of, I think on panel stated full counters makes it about like 64 times. That may be too high. 32. I think it's 32. But then if you like count all the full counters we literally see, including the ones that aren't stated, I think it's like upwards of 16 times. And that was the combined efforts of all the sins. Assault Moon Meliodas, Final Shine Escanor. Gother admittedly doesn't count too much because he just threw in Kill Switch. But Bon, King, Diane, 5 of the sins threw all their magic in there. And that got multiplied either as like 16 or like 1,048 times. I forget what the calc was in that original video. I'd have to go recount now, but I'm not going to do that right now. But that would explain Lancelot's raw level of power if he's simply able to absorb all that magic. And since he's able to absorb Nanashi's magic, him drinking the Lady of the Lake's bathwater is looking more and more like a thing that may have actually happened, which is crazy to say the very least. But with that being the case, dog, look at this. Look at Nanashi, this regal goddess reduced to a kicking bag, bro. Lance kicks his front so hard that his back explodes. Like, literally, his foot may have gone straight through Nanashi's stomach. That's how... I kind of lied when I said Nanashi's eyes don't get as big as they do earlier. These are massive peepers right here, because he literally gets perception blitzed. Hard perception blitz so bad that his foot goes through Nanashi's gut. Oh. What? And we see that this isn't just like, oh, Nanashi reacted at all. No, he's cracked, snapped, and broken, literally spitting up life juice. And he literally asks, where did he come from? Nanashi, an archangel to your... Once again, none of this is technically more impressive than that initial opening statement from Arthur through Nanashi. But an archangel to your fighter. Got perception blitzed by no weapon. Like, okay, admittedly, weapons epping speed is kind of weird. I'm not sure if it does that. But still, full power Lance is out here perception blitzing Archangel Tears, bruh. Look at this. This is Mael. All you Mael fans out there, this is what's going to happen to your mans. All the Luda Show fans out there, this is what happens to your mans. Tarmiel, Sariel. Do they have fans? I think they have some fans. I know some people really like Sariel's human form. You demons. But, dog, that is crazy. And we see that Nanashi, or No Name, gets a compliment. No Name, you were pretty decent. Dog, he wasn't even a good fight. He wasn't even a good fight. He was just decent. Boom. Boom. straight through a pillar all the way back here. Lance knocks him. And we do get a backstory and some clarification on the Nashi. I rejected the gods I once served. As punishment, I was banished, my wings plucked off. So, this is interesting. This is an interesting statement on multiple levels. Number one, it confirms that Nashi did not take off his own wings like I initially thought on seeing his reveal way back when that he was a goddess. No, the gods ripped his wings off themselves after he rejected them. Though, interesting that he says, the gods. Were there other supreme deities? Or were there multiple? Because presumably the only god Nashi served was the supreme deity, right? Because he's a goddess. I don't think he served the demon king. But with him rejecting the gods he once served, what does that mean? Does that mean there are multiple? I'm going to chalk that up to just a translation thing. I'm assuming it really means I rejected the god I once served, because he once served the supreme deity, and considering the master parallel that he gets with Arthur later, I'm guessing that is just a mistranslation thing. Though it is crazy, this essentially implies that the supreme deity, upon Nashi's rejection of something, simply picked him up, squeezed him, and ripped out his wings one by one. That's wild. The supreme deity was really about that. And once again, it just establishes, if people, because I don't blame people for starting to underrate the supreme deity and the demon king, considering how many times they got beat up. But yeah, the gods were different. The gods were different. Archangel tier fighters, nothing. Some of the strongest fighters in the verse, nothing to the deities. That's how power cliffing happens, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why base post-purgatory Meliodas would literally one-tap all the archangels. But with that being the case, he probably one-tap all the archangels and the commandments combined. Even if you include Prime Meliodas in there. That's a video I'll make. But with that being the case, we see that ultimately Nashi, once being rejected, after rejecting, he just spent ages wandering, unable to find any reason to keep living. Which does make me wonder, it seems like he was in samurai mode all the way back when. I thought he had maybe traveled the world and went to the Japan of this world and learned samurai techniques, but I guess not. It seems like he was just this Japanese inspired all the way back when. Interesting. But we see that Nashi is the kind of person who can't live without a master, without someone guiding him, without someone giving him a purpose. And we see that the person who ended up giving him purpose was none other than the human king, Arthur. That was Arthur. His eyes shone like bright stars, as clear as a cloudless sky, so young, but looking so far into the future, and hoping those living in it could be happy. I resolved to serve him as I resolved to serve as his protective blade. I gave my all to him. We see this is very specifically human Arthur, way back when, which is interesting. Once again, the timeline of Arthur and his servants and stuff like this feels weird. I thought he didn't meet Nashi until sometime in the original series. Because Nashi wasn't around. He wasn't around at Camelot when the Albion showed up. If Nashi was there, he should have low-diffed it. And there's no reason at that point in the series why Nashi wouldn't be there if he was already serving under Arthur then. So, I don't know. I resolved to serve as his protective blade. I gave my all to him. I wonder, and this is once again very specifically post-season 1 Arthur outfit. I don't know. Feels weird. When did they meet? I wonder. But we see that Nashi ultimately finds himself despairing, because he says, over time, his eyes were darkened by the scornful hatred for the other clans. Some of his faithful aides left his side, saying he had changed, much as I had once done to my own gods. Which, once again, he says gods. That's twice. They wouldn't mistranslate twice, would they? I don't know. But if there really are more supreme deity tier threats in the goddess clan, that's needed. That's needed. Give them more. But we do get to see that Nashi is looking for hope, ironically enough. Myself, I want to believe that he is truly a kind, gentle king, dreaming of peace for all Britannia. But Arthur's powers have grown beyond any reasonable level. I doubt I could ever open the king's eyes for him. So Nanashi believes that Arthur has become so unbelievably powerful that if he ever were to try and fight back, ever were to rebel, he would fall like all others. Though this is a very interesting point of characterization for Arthur and does make me believe that if this Arthur is being controlled or manipulated, if that reveal does end up happening, the real Arthur is still somewhere in there. Because Nanashi mentions that his faithful aides left his side, but he didn't get rid of them or forcefully conscript them. And even though he likely knows Nanashi is a goddess, since Nanashi used this massive arc attack on him before, Nanashi is still alive. So Arthur does still care for people of other clans that were once useful to him, or are still useful to him, like Nanashi. Which, once again, does explain why he hasn't just spawned in and low-diff Leonis at this point, if he could. Maybe well, not Lance. Maybe Mel is just that powerful to where even Chaos Arthur couldn't come in and low diff him, but still very, very interesting. Arthur still has a soft spot to him, even though he's shrouded in a much deeper darkness than ever before. And we see that Lance is like, and that's why you wanted to see for yourself, huh? And Nanashi snaps awake as he's buried in a crater. And we see Gawain and Tristan walk up, saying, oh, look who just flew in. And Lance clarifies, like, you wanted to see whether or not we had the kind of power needed to open up Arthur's eyes. Honestly, don't have any duty to, but don't you worry. We'll be beating him senseless for sure, at the very least. So, Lance is down to indirectly help Nanashi, even if it just means whooping Arthur's behind. And with that being the case, we see Nanashi ask, oh, so you read my mind. And Lancelot reveals that he can even read people's dreams. Because he says, someone as quiet as you is at their most eloquent asleep. Y'all think when y'all sleep? I mean, I guess you have dreams and stuff like that, but I don't know. When I'm asleep, like, at least for me, because I don't remember my dreams. I used to remember my nightmares a whole lot more, but I don't even think I remember those much anymore. So, like, whenever I go to sleep, I just wake up. Like, it's just like a time skip. It's literally like in video games where you sit by the campfire and fall asleep and then time passes the next day. That's literally how my sleep schedule works. So, I don't know if Nanashi's able to, I guess Lance is able to like read dreams or subconscious thoughts or something. That's very impressive. And we see that Nanashi accepts it. He says, oh, okay. And we see Lance actually does respect Nanashi enough to ask, okay, so you've seen me now. What do you think? And we see Nanashi admits that it's been quite a while since he's felt so refreshed. Which means that he finally feels hope that Arthur can be saved once again. And that is nice. Nanashi's given hope again. I'm shocked Arthur doesn't... I wonder if Arthur's going to immediately annihilate him for what he does here, though. Because this is an interesting act right here. He doesn't automatically let them in the Camelot, but look what he does here. Lancelot, my sword may be too blunt for you, but take it to make up for your bow. And Lance takes the sword and he's like, oh, whatever. A dull sword? Gee, thanks. But, Nanashi drops a bombshell. Don't be that way. It's the handiwork of the Busu, the great swordsmith. Y'all. It's been a long time coming, y'all. It's been a long time coming. These swords are not the same color. But, dog, you mean to tell me you gave a Lance, the character who's already the second strongest in the verse, with no weapon, not just a regular weapon, not just a regular sword, you gave him a sacred treasure? A secret treasure? Now, don't get me wrong, this was implied by the fact that Lance could use Shining Road on Shirojika, or White Deer, and it didn't break. But now that it's confirmed that this is a sacred treasure tier weapon, talk. How are we gonna stop him? He cannot be stopped. He cannot be stopped. He's a menace. He's a menace. How are the rest of the Knights gonna catch up? Lance has to get nerfed. He literally has to get nerfed, y'all. Because there's no way he already is the second strongest character in the verse. We just gave him a 10 times amp. It has to be more than 10 times amp. Sacred Treasures amp you massively, much more than any base weapon, and base weapons already give you 10 times amp with destructive type magic. Lance literally swings the sword once, and the whole verse is cooked. A Shining Road from this should annihilate anybody and everybody. A full power Shining Road. I know y'all are going to say, well, technically Nashi just ate a Shining Road last chapter. That was the Nashi who got near death by a base casual Lance Shining Road. Not to talk of full power, who's clearly in an entirely different tier. But, with that being the case, we see that despite the blade being dull, which is ironic because... What is this sword called? It's one of Zoro's swords. Ryuma? I think? I'm not sure. I need to read One Piece properly. But, this sword is also dull. I mean, it could... If I swing it hard enough against my arm, it'll cut, but it's not. Unlike some of my other blades, this isn't actually very sharp. So, me and Lance do both possess dull blades. But, Lance now has a dull blade as a Sacred Treasure tier weapon. Whole verse cooked. And we do see Nashi, he collapses and he smiles, watching as his beloved friends reunite. It belongs to you now. You and your stealth friends. And Lance goes on to flex. Ain't this thing neat? Of course it is. And we see that Tristan, being the hater he always is like, good for you, I guess. Tristan, shut your hate behind up. But of course, if you couldn't tell by how freaking geeked that was, how long this review is, yes, this is a W chapter all around. Fantastic for scaling, fantastic for Lance, fantastic characterization for both Lance and Nashi, subconscious and subtle characterization and world building for ancient clans like the Goddess Clan, and for Arthur, an amazingly W chapter. If you somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave Lance broke the verse in the comment section down below. Lance broke the verse. Please leave that down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagon the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members for Connor Plays, Red Wolf 4765, and Burp Skills. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demex LND. And I'd like to give a fat, hefty thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And I'd like to give another hefty, dafty thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And another big fat scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.